He claims to have killed 37 people. His story has inspired a dozen books and 2 movies. He is one of America's worst serial killers. And his identity remains a mystery. Shocking Unsolved Crime number 15 is the case of the Zodiac Killer.
This man had a reign of terror, and he was randomly killing people for the kicks of it.
The date was December 20th, 1968, and a serial killer was about to claim his first victims. Teenagers David Faraday and Betty Lou Jensen were parked in a station wagon at a lover's lane in Vallejo, California.
David Faraday was shot once in the head and was killed very quickly, and Betty Lou Jensen apparently started to flee, and she was shot several times in the back.
6 months later, at a different lover's lane in Vallejo, the killers struck again. This time, using a 9mm handgun, he killed 22-year-old Darlene Ferrin and wounded 19-year-old Michael Mageau.
He actually was tossed into the back seat by the force of bullets and presumed dead, but he survived.
Shortly after, a man who said he was the shooter calmly phoned Vallejo police.
Didn't want to leave it up to the police to link the murders. He wanted to take credit immediately, and he reported his own crime.
On July 31st, 3 area newspapers received a handwritten letter from someone claiming to be the murderer.
To prove that he was the actual culprit, he included details that only he and the police would have known.
There were ominous instructions to print part of an encrypted message on the front page of each newspaper.
They contain cryptograms, these puzzles that you have to decipher. And when you decipher them, you see that he's threatening to kill more people.
The letters also gave the killer a name: Zodiac. True to his word, Zodiac struck again in September 1969. College students Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard were picnicking at Lake Berryessa in Napa Valley.
He was wearing a black hood, and he was wielding a knife, a foot-long knife. He approached his victims, and then he stabbed them.
Zodiac penned another cryptic note on the side of Hartnell's Volkswagen.
He immediately called the Napa Police Department and again took credit for the killing. He wrote on their car the dates of the other murders and the Zodiac sign to instill more terror.
Barely 2 weeks later, Zodiac claimed yet another victim.
He kills a cab driver in the Presidio Heights section of San Francisco, shoots him with a 9mm gun, takes an article of his clothing or a piece of his clothing, sends the piece of clothing along with another letter.
This time, the serial killer threatened to execute a busload of students.
He was going to be a sniper, shoot out the tire of the school bus, and then when the kids were coming off the bus, he would pick them off, one by one.
Thankfully, that threat was never carried out.
The Zodiac Killer had done almost everything you could to try to get caught. He made phone calls, but by the time they got to those phone booths, he wasn't there. He sent letters, he sent puzzles, he taunted them.
One of the last verified letters from the Zodiac Killer was postmarked in May 1974. No one's sure how many murders were actually committed by the man who called himself the Zodiac Killer, but at least 5 deaths are confirmed. According to investigators, the most likely suspect was a convicted child molester named Arthur Lee Allen. Allen died in 1992 of a heart attack.
The fact is, there wasn't a stitch of evidence to connect him to the Zodiac murders.
DNA samples of saliva found on envelopes mailed by the Zodiac Killer were compared to samples of Allen's DNA in 2007. They did not match. Coming up.
I think it was someone who knew her and just decided to murder her.